Hello everyone, I'm Kaz Dunn. I'm the Corporate Events Manager at the Royal College of Occupational Therapists. Really excited to welcome you all to RCOT's first ever Twitter Spaces event. Just before we get started, just to mention there's an option to use captions if needed. Just click on the settings button, that's the three little dots, and from there you can turn on captions. These are live captions, so they're not going to be 100% accurate, but they should help overall. I'm just going to pause a moment to allow people to do this. Okay. We'll be recording the entire conversation and we're going to make it available on our website and other social media and channels for everyone to listen to afterwards. A reminder that if you'd like to join in the conversation, click on the microphone icon, which is at the bottom left of your screen, and you use that to request to speak. When you do that, we'll then make you a speaker. It just takes a moment for us to do that. You'll then have control of your microphone while you're speaking, so you can turn it on and off, mute, unmute when you're speaking or when others are. It would be great if you introduce yourself when you do start speaking, and please remember to put yourself back on mute when you're finished. We do also have the power to do this for you. To allow as much participation as possible, we're going to be monitoring the number of people we have as speakers at any one time. And if you are speaking, we do ask you to please be concise, as we've only got limited time in this event. Right, more than enough from me. I'd now like to welcome Steve Ford, RCOT's Chief Executive, to please start the OTsForEquity Twitter Spaces conversation. Steve.
Brilliant, thanks Kaz, and this is fantastic, isn't it? It's amazing that I can see so many people kind of joining us. It reminds me actually of when I used to do student radio. I was given a slot Sunday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and I reckon in the whole year that I did that, I don't anybody ever listened to my show, which is probably quite good actually. But it's great that we can see people, and I think it's fantastic that we're innovating, experimenting with different ways of engaging and connecting. That's what it's all about, isn't it? How are we going to build this really strong, powerful community movement of occupational therapists? So this kind of innovation, I think, let's see how it goes and how we can build on that. It will be great to hear from as many people as possible, and there'll be opportunities for people to speak in a minute. Yeah, so this is my first ever occupational therapy week, and it feels like it's been a success. But it would be great to get comments from people about all of that. Started with our launch event on Monday, so Michael Marmot's thought-provoking presentation, and then a great panel discussion looking at topics like whether data really gathers the data that's gathered, whether it reflects the needs, the issues facing all parts of our society, the barriers that the LGBTQ plus community can face accessing health services, questions about whether poverty should be identified as a prioritizing factor for occupational therapy interventions, and lots more other great insights. So if you didn't attend the recording is on the website, so do catch up on it. It's felt too, there's been a real buzz on social media, lots of ways of kind of calculating different things, and we reckon that we've had a reach of 5.9 million through all of the social media interactions. So it just shows just how powerful it is when we all kind of work together to on a campaign, and I think that's fantastic. So the video that we launched on Monday has had over 46,000 views, which is great, and hopefully you felt that was a powerful communication. But let's keep that going. Do continue to share it. It's on our website. You'll see lots of tweets with it on, so you can get hold of that and pass it on. We've been asking people to share examples of what they're doing to address health equity every day, and I've been really inspired and impressed and learned a lot just to see the examples, people talking about how they're supporting their patients with rehousing from an acute hospital setting, actually getting involved in housing type issues, the way people are making sure that their services have full access to interpreters, so there's no barriers for anybody to access services, but so many other examples. We've been asking people throughout the week to share your ideas for how we can address health equity as individuals, as a profession, and as your professional body. What should we be calling governments to do as well? And that was the theme for our OTalk session on Wednesday, and some really great conversations there. we've been asking people to share on our new ideas platform as well, so that's definitely worth having a look at. Okay, well, enough for me. I want to open up the conversation and hear from others. So we've invited a few members to join me, so we can start it all off. And again, if you want to say something, just click on the microphone icon to request to speak, and we'll get you on stage to do that. But first of all, I'd just like to ask, just the panel members to go around the table and introduce themselves. So Verena, would you like to start?
Hello, hi. So I'm Verena Zimmer. I'm on the Welsh board of RCOT. Have been there, I think it's my second year. And for my day job, I'm one of the lead occupational therapists in Powys County Council. So that's in social care, covering the south of Powys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Verena. And then we've got Hannah.
Hi, hopefully this is working.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see the captions coming up, so that's good. So hi, I'm an occupational therapist working in London. I work on a deaf acute mental health ward. So it's a ward for people who use BSL and are deaf. It's quite an interesting place to work because half of our staff, MDT, are also deaf, including the activity worker I work with. So yeah, it's nice to meet you all.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hannah. And then Kia.
Hello, so I'm Kia Hardin. I am the clinical lead of Beam Consultancy and also obviously an occupational therapist. And my work is largely around helping people who are recurrently suicidal and use self-harm as a way of coping, who tend to get a diagnosis of personality disorder, to avoid prolonged admissions to hospitals and private hospitals where the care that they get isn't particularly good. That's what I get up to.
Great, thanks, Keir. So yeah, I mean, it would be just interesting to hear from you all on this week. Actually, who wants to go first? Why don't you go?
I will. Then you've got a bit of a pulse. I was really impressed by that launch at the beginning of the week. So I think Michael Marmot's talk about the social determinants of health, and I think the thought that kind of struck me was around, why do we get people who might have like chronic lung conditions, put them in an expensive hospital and treat them, and send them back to the conditions that cause these problems in the first place? So that really affected me. And then I think I was quite impressed and excited by ARCOT taking this as an issue. It felt very political to think about the social determinants of health as opposed to ill people or people with problems where that problem was entirely rooted within them. It feels like quite an exciting change to be pushing for within the political arena.
Great, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. My Bluetooth speakers have just gone off, so I'm now talking through the phone. But what about Verena? What's your views?
I'd agree with what Keir just said. It I think very much feels like a very political subject, which I wouldn't say I'm naturally, historically very political, but I think it's interesting because it puts us right in there. And I think perhaps a challenge to us all is how comfortable to get involved with those kind of issues. I think my reflection of the week is actually how hard it is, and I'm sure I think the original title of the OTsForEquity, it didn't grab me so much, and I think the same for some of my colleagues. And it's not until you actually immerse yourself a little bit in that it's brilliant. I mean that talk was amazing. I think to fit in engaging with OT Week when we all got incredibly busy lives and we're trying to keep a good work-life balance going. I thought I reflected quite a lot on that this week, because the one evening when I joined an OT talk, I didn't sleep very well because I'd worked all day and I'd thought about OT all in the evening. So that's just, I guess, a personal reflection on us, where OT Week is brilliant. But just how do we make sure that we engage our hardworking OTs with an event like this?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and what about you, Hannah?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's very relevant to a lot of what's been going on social media with young people, young activists, young disabled activists as well. And I think it's about time that we are also involved in that. And, I think we can offer a lot as a profession, but I do think sometimes we can be a bit in the shadows when we should be. Well, I think that patients value us, but I think sometimes we're a bit invisible. So I think we should be using our voices more to promote OT, and also to be talking obviously about equity. And it is political as well. And I think that there are little things that we can be doing as well. I know we'll be coming on to talk about that, but I think the main point is that it's very relevant at the moment, that discussions are already happening and we need to be promoting that.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Brilliant, thanks, Hannah. And I think you've all kind of touched upon this a bit, but what does health equity mean to you? And I suppose I'd be interested to hear that, particularly in relation to the services that you're involved in.
And I'll fill that space again then. So I think when I was working in the NHS, I found that the client group that I was working within tended to get quite a raw deal. So they were people that practitioners could say, I do not work with them. So they kind of got excluded from services, or they ended up in high levels of restriction for long periods of time. So what I wanted to do with setting up Beam was to try and provide a service that could think about people in a thoughtful way. So that's definitely what I do to try and address that. And I partly try and take it a bit further, because you can see that England and Scotland are investing in this client group. Wales isn't at the moment, and Wales is kind of there's areas of Wales where they don't provide specialist services to this client group, and the health secretary will say, the NICE guidelines are optional. And it's really interesting to see that disparate response to people who've generally survived neglect, trauma and abuse, being so different in the different home counties. Health equity for me is trying to get a fair and compassionate response to people who have lived through incredible adversity in their lives, who at the moment I see just getting blamed for all of their problems and not thought about and not being responded to in ways that people with other diagnoses do. And then the second part of that is that, the amount of restriction and coercion that gets put on people with this diagnosis, but equally, people who tend to be poor, in poor housing, with really difficult relationships. And we definitely need to address the social aspects around people, as opposed to thinking, what is the correct medication for surviving an abuse full of domestic violence? So that's definitely what I'm doing and building on.
I like that, Keir. And sorry to interrupt you a bit. I like that bit about, for you, equity is not just about dealing with the patients or your clients as they come through the door. It's actually about setting up services, going out and identifying those groups who aren't accessing services. So that's fantastic. What about you, Verena? What would you want to say?
Sorry, I was pressing the wrong button. So obviously in social care, one of our main kind of roles is around housing. So I think, again, reflecting on the recording of the opening talk I heard this morning is, I guess a lot of it is we are doing it already. We are in every time when we help people to for rehousing, we adapt people's housing. We are in a way addressing the effects of the inequities. I think for me this is quite a new concept. I'll be honest. So for me, I think it's just a bit of a light bulb moment about. I've always known in our practice a lot of the people we work with, we can see firsthand it's a very complex but very clear impact that poor housing has on people's physical health, mental health, children's development, and all of that. And I guess for me, it's just having this concept of health inequities. It's just giving me something to frame really where the context is for that, and the importance really of the work that we're doing there. I think I heard again this morning about this sort of continuum of awareness, action, and advocacy. So I think for me, probably what it means is just having more of that awareness of how the people that we're working with, how they are in the situations that they're in, and maybe at the point of challenging, because we hear from colleagues, from housing colleagues, from all sorts of people we work with, some of the stories they're being told are plainly lies. Anybody could eat well if they just learn how to cook properly and cook from scratch, and how people have got big plasma TV screens, and there's a lot of stories being told that's just not true. And I think maybe just for us to work at that, us being more aware ourselves and spreading that awareness.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Verena. So I guess, it's interesting, and you're being quite open really about this sense of perhaps not looking at what you do through that lens of health equity, and maybe that's been a theme for lots of people this week, and perhaps an issue for us collectively as a profession. So we'll bring other people in a minute, but let's just ask Hannah for that question, and then we'll bring some others in.
Hiya. So where I work is very unusual. There's only 3 wards in the country for deaf people with mental health problems, and it was set up because, deaf people would go to a doctor, CMHT or something, and they would ask for support, but they would have to go through an interpreter if an interpreter was booked. So deaf people have to really fight first to get communication and then to get support. And so I think just by talking about my own role, all of that is about improving access, because deaf people also have a shorter life expectancy because of lack of access to healthcare. And also just linking in with what Keir said about people who use self-harm and suicide as ways of coping with trauma, etc. Deaf people who use those methods and may get a diagnosis of personality disorder, there is no specialist help for them. So they get stuck with us, which, we can offer support, but we're not specialist. So those people literally have nowhere to go. So basically my job is around supporting deaf people, but also within the deaf community, it's vast. So there's way more we could be talking about as well.
So a real kind of advocacy role, I think I'm hearing from you. It's not just kind of responding to those kind of obvious needs that get presented to you. It's about looking kind of beyond and what the broader needs are and how we make sure that services are in place. So yeah, brilliant. Have you got someone else who we can bring in to speak, or would like to come off mute, turn my microphone on? Have we got anyone? Okay, well, it would be great if people do want to flag up that they want to say something, perhaps tell us how what health equity means to you in relation to the service that you're involved in.
I can fill a gap if while we wait for hopefully some hands to come up. I joined my first is it OT Talk on Twitter on Wednesday. The technology was quite overwhelming, but I thought it was fascinating and just really interesting to, I guess, talk to other OTs in a different context. And we talked about lots of different topics. It was amazing. One of the things I found interesting was we were talking about health equity and climate change, and at first I didn't see where that connection came from at all. And then there was a really interesting article on BBC News the following morning, which about exactly that, and saying how people, from things like how when there floods, how the people who are killed are very often people with disabilities, mobility issues, who can't leave their properties, and I believe something about when there've been extreme heat, how people with schizophrenia have got something like 500 times more proportion of people of deaths because of the medication that they're on doesn't let the body deal with heat so well. I just thought that was an amazing connection, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, so we've got Amanda.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everyone. This is a great platform. Thank you for hosting it all. I'm Amanda White. I'm a chair of the Eastern Region, but I work in housing predominantly. Just want to share my experience from this morning and my frustrations. I've been assessing a lady since February under a local council sort of DFG service. We identified that her property maybe could be adapted to meet her needs. However, further feasibility assessment with the surveyors identified that it's not suitable to adapt that property. So that's taken from February until November to identify that. She's now been told that she'll have to go onto a housing register where the waiting list could be 6 months to be assessed, and then it could be 8 to 10 years before she's housed. That was awful for me to hear this morning. Now, obviously, there are some other services, that you can get into, like maybe going onto a housing register for social housing, like sort of supported housing with the occupational therapy recommendations that might put you onto a nominations list, and you might get housing a little bit sooner. But this isn't the first case that I've heard of this, and I'm sure there are many other social care housing occupational therapists that echo this story. It just breaks my heart when I have to leave somebody in a house that is damp, is unsuitable, is not accessible, and they're stuck in 2 rooms and can't access their toilet easily, so having to use a commode. To me, that isn't life, and that's having mental health effect onto the individuals and their families. And I don't, where's the answer to it?
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. And I think what comes out from what you're saying is what other people have said about that need for us to be more political, and you know, maybe that's something new for us, or it's got a greater emphasis for us sort of currently. I just, you know, it'd be interesting to reflect on that. I know Di from Wales is I think I've seen his icon. Di, I thought you gave a really great answer about that on the Monday session. Do you want to kind of reflect on what it means to be political, you know, given your role in Wales, having that kind of influence? Are you able to speak? Or are you in the middle of eating a lunch or something? I don't know.
While we wait for Di, yes, I thought so too, and I've been lucky to have done quite a bit of work with Di, or he's invited me along to do various events with Welsh Government, and I think I really liked what you said, Di, about yes, it is political, but rather than being too drawn down the lines of party politics, is to actually listening. I believe, so I'm misquoting you badly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Saying that
I think Di's. Yeah. Do you want to say something, Di?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Di Davis. I'm the professional practice lead for Wales. I'm actually on my day off and I'm having electrics on, so if you hear any drilling, please excuse that. The political dimension of this is really important, and I think I tried to emphasise on Monday evening. Actually, it's not a sort of party political issue. It's an issue of fairness, and all parties believe in fairness. You might not agree with that, and you might not agree with their methods, but it's just understanding that and then working with the sort of political party stakeholders, then trying to come to a positive solution for your service users. So I've always tried to emphasise this is not a left-right issue. It's just an issue on fairness, and for our patients, we just got to advocate on that behalf.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's really.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, do.
Yeah, I feel that as a profession, we are providing access, and anytime we're providing access especially for disabled people, mentally ill people, etc., that in itself, I feel, is political in a world that is unaccessible.
That's really interesting. Really interesting.
Can I jump back in that we work on the social model of disability, and we advocate for that quite a lot in Power. So I mean, we do think that, I mean, it's society is disabling everyone, and everything we do in relation to OT, from housing adaptations to managing wait lists, all as a political dimension. So understanding that political dimension is really, really important.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I think we got Jim OT, and then Nikki Lowe. So Jim first.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. It's really weird coming to a sort of an OT talk that's vocal rather than typing, which is great for a dyslexic. I just wanted to echo Kira and Hannah's words from the beginning. Having previously worked in secure mental health and dealing with patients who have the diagnostic label of personality disorder and also deafness as a key feature, it's been incredibly hard to be, equitable and support them. And again, we have a lot of patients in them services that are from Wales, that are put out all the way. I mean, over in Northampton, that's a long wait for them to be placed and forgotten about. But from a personal point of view, currently the equity, we're working with people with a bariatric diagnosis, with bariatric need, and there isn't the pathway to support them to gain access to mental health services because the services just don't exist. I just wanted to raise that as something that we're struggling on.
Yeah, brilliant. And how do you get that voice heard then? I mean, because that sounds like that's a really important message you've got. And actually, if other people can mute while you're not talking, that would be great. But yeah,
currently I'm using the 3 local NHS trusts, the 2 councils together, and coming together to build a task force to look at what we can do. But it's all about their physical health. The issues around the mental health and maybe an eating disorder type approach just is non-existent at the moment. It's something that we will attack as a service, the lack of provision as opposed to persons, obviously. But again, it's using the local resources, our networks, and it's being political on things like LinkedIn, on Twitter, and trying to get people to take notice that there's a gap.
No, I think that's a great example, actually, of being political isn't about, as Di said, it's not about being party political. It's not even always about governments. It's about using our local health systems and the influencing the power that's there. So yeah, no, thanks for that. Nikki, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Nikki Lowe here, Simon OT, working in adult social care. And for me, I think, I'm absolutely delighted to see a Royal College of OT embracing the kind of political nature of our work. For me, politics is politics with a small p. It's about everybody. It's about inclusion. And I was concerned particularly about those client groups, including those with ME/CFS, who haven't been well served by the medical community. And I was really pleased to be able to work with Royal College of OT and to have revisiting the statement that was originally made, and to see our professional body coming out and supporting the new revised NICE guidance. So for me, that's a real step forward. Lots of work going on about research into long COVID and ME/CFS, and I think sitting next to those client groups for whom the science isn't yet there, and being their allies and working in a person-centered way with them is hugely important.
Yeah, and I think a good example of your politics there, Nikki. I remember you were DMing me on a Saturday afternoon, trying to help getting us to kind of respond quickly. But that's great, isn't it? I think it's using our influence in whatever way we can to affect change. We've got Rachel next. Rachel Booth Gardner.
Oh, hello. This
Hi,
is exciting. I merely just wanted to see how it all worked. But I guess kind of the couple of things that I wanted to add was some people may be aware that unfortunately I caught COVID and spent a long time in hospital last year, and I'm still recovering. So an interesting perspective of how the whole health service worked together, and some people might struggle with how I felt about the occupational therapy that I received, because it wasn't holistic and it wasn't together. We know that all services are fragmented. It would have been really helpful to have one person all the way through my journey, but I've had different consultants, different doctors, different occupational therapists, different physios. So I just think that this subject is a really good subject at kind of making us just double think. Yes, we say we're holistic, we say we're all of these things, but truly the systems we work in aren't. And we need to wake up a little bit and be political, and kind of let's change the system from without. Anyway, I'll stop now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I'm just wondering, I can see lots of colleagues who work at RCOT on the, I don't know, do we say on the call, in the meeting? I don't know. How do we do it? In the space. Does anybody want to say anything, how you think this emphasis on health equity is kind of influencing your work or the work of your teams? And perhaps while you're thinking about that, we've got Heather. So Heather, why don't you take the mic?
Thank you, Steve. Hopefully you can hear me. It's my first time using this platform. That's great. I'm Heather McFarlane. I've just moved into an allied health professional role in the Public Health Agency in Northern Ireland as of this week. So I am an OT of many years, but I've just moved into this role. Can I just say I'm absolutely delighted to see OTsForEquity taking forward OT Week. I was so excited to see it, and I've been involved with the Royal College for several years now, but so I just wanted to say initially, thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful to have been part of those conversations. I think in terms of COVID and what we have learned from that, through what Michael Marmot said, but also lots of reports that are coming through in terms of BMJ and certainly the reports that are feeding through from our outcomes of that, it's impossible for us to ignore that the hardest hit group by this pandemic were those with disabilities, as well as those from ethnic minorities. And we know we've always worked extremely well in terms of promoting our role as OTs, but I think within this climate, it's impossible for us to ignore the extrinsic factors that are associated with both of these groups, and it's closely linked to socioeconomic deprivation. And we as OTs, you're absolutely right, lots of speakers have talked about the housing that we've got involved in, the way that we increase that access to our services, but we have got to be aware and not blind to the fact that there are massive health inequalities in our system, and our poor health outcomes have increased. That gap now is becoming broader and broader. 30% of our children are living in food poverty. I mean, that's incredible. If we were to eat well, I think Michael Marmot said 74% of income of the lowest families would need to go on food. That's directly related, as we know, to fuel poverty, because those families have got to think about, can I heat at home or do I eat well? So I think for us in community, and those particularly as I have worked many years in cold winters, recognising that our older people stay longer in bed because they can't heat the homes, isn't something we can go in and just recognise and feel sorry about. I think we've got to actually step up what we do and raise this conversation both to a higher level and lobby as we can because of our professional capacity within the organisation to do so. We need to be active in lobbying about this because this is impacting the people we work with. This poverty and this deprivation is coming forward. And Di's right, it is an issue of fairness. It's not about left and right politics here. But I think there is an appetite for collaboration. We've seen that through COVID, and there is an appetite to develop that. Now is the time that we can seize. Forget about competition. This is everybody's impacting everyone. Poverty impacts everyone. It impacts the whole community and nationally right across it. I suppose in Northern Ireland, we've been fortunate when we've had an assembly up and running, that because it's been local, we've had that potential to actually lobby at that level and to speak to people about what's affecting our community. But you have brilliant examples in the likes of Preston, where you do community wealth building models extremely well. And that has really impacted on reducing poverty within local areas. So there are models of practice out there that we can look at. And I think as occupational therapists, now is the time actually for us to step up and say this. We know that it exists within our communities. We know there's poor housing in some areas, overcrowding, fuel and food poverty. That's impacting on health inequalities. And I welcome the conversations we've had this week. What I would love to see is for that to be taken to a higher forum and for us as an organisation to continue those conversations, but maybe at a national level.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that's a good challenge. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Heather. So we've got Ruth Hawley next. Are you there, Ruth? Are you able to unmute yourself?
I am. Goodness, my phone, it clicked off at the point that you gave me the power to unmute.
No, it always does that. It's the law, someone's law.
I know, it's really unusual. So a little bit like Rachel, partly I just wanted to try out the technology and to actively contribute. But I've equally loved the theme around OTsForEquity. And I guess for me, part of joining in on a new platform, I heard Jim said about this is great because OTalk is written, and as someone who has the experience of dyslexia, that's hard to access. I'm kind of in my own brain wondering about what are the equity access issues of this as a different platform as well, and just pondering that. I think with so many things, there's not necessarily always quick answers or easy fixes, but I love the fact that at the minute within our profession, it feels like we're asking the questions and there's appetite for change and there's energy for it. And I think that's got to be a good thing. And as an addition, I joined just at the point that Verena was talking about the challenges of OT Week, and having lots of questions and lots of challenges is that it can almost be overwhelming and make your brain buzz too much. And how do we balance that with work-life balance and occupational balance? And I'm trialing my Twitter Spaces on a walk in the park, which I recognise because I've got the privilege to do so. But yeah, it just made me think.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I just wonder, Karen, whether you want to give a kind of RCOT perspective on some of this conversation, and then I'm putting people on the spot now, and people are going to be worried. So, Carolyn, I just wonder whether you wanted to lead on kind of education work, whether you just want to reflect on how we're kind of preparing new occupational therapists for this kind of emphasis in our work. So do you want to go first, Karen?
Hi, yes. Just really saying that I think for us at RCOT, it's really exciting and invigorating, and just to hear so many examples of where health equity is being addressed across occupational therapy. When we do have the opportunities to sit round tables with decision makers, but what's really brings those conversations to life is when we have real examples from occupational therapists, so to highlight the points we want to make. So I think my message really is keep sharing, keep putting examples, keep putting examples on our social wall so that we can use those examples. We've got some really good, we have experience of using people's examples in our different campaigns, and the health equity one is no different. So just please keep sharing. Thanks.
Brilliant. Yeah, share what you do so we can kind of build that into our kind of messaging, but also I think just sharing it with each other is just such a powerful way to accelerate change, isn't it, when we can kind of copy good stuff that other people are doing. So yeah, thanks for that. Carolyn, are you able to
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and I'm another of the very excited people to be using Twitter Spaces. So great to be trying that out. I was just jotting down a few notes and trying to structure my thoughts when you said my name. So apologies if my thoughts aren't too clear. But I've just the role for students in this is huge. And I think listening to Sherry on Monday, you're listening to somebody who is the future of our profession, because it gets used all the time. But incredibly articulate, incredibly clear, politically aware. And our students are, and I think there's a real opportunity to make sure that, particularly when our students, our apprentices, our learners are out on placement, they've got that opportunity to bring some of their experiences, bring some of the conversations, learning, perspectives, reading that they're undertaking within their studies into practice. And particularly with the variety of different placement opportunities and thinking about quality improvement projects, service improvement, quality assurance projects, and leadership placements. There's lots of different ways that I think students can get involved in really trying to support the work of organisations and teams in terms of health inequalities and health equity.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thanks for that, Carolyn. I guess we're coming a little bit towards the end, but it would be really good, I think, to hear people's reflections on kind of what next. It sounds like we've taken the lid off something this week, or we've given greater exposure to an issue which is resonating with lots of people. But what next? It'd be great to hear your kind of views on that. But while you're thinking about that, I think Amanda White wants to come back in.
Sorry, it's Kaz here. We're just waiting for Amanda to come back. And there she is. Hi,
Oh,
Amanda.
hi. Sorry. I'm just sitting here listening very intently to everything that's being said. And the thing that's sort of come back to my mind, I was looking at something on Twitter this morning, I think, and it just reminded me of Kate Granger's campaign for Hello, My Name Is. And I resonated that with the experience that Rachel shared with us in her hospital. And, Kate created this great big campaign that is used nationally across the NHS now. And I'm just sitting here thinking, what could we do to create a great big campaign similarly that is used nationally across the poverty? I know it's a big ask, but it's just my thoughts, and I just wanted to share them.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thank you. That's really good. Really good. And anybody else want to share their ideas of what next?
Can I?
Yeah.
It's Kia. So just listening to people talking about how this might be a political issue, and I think when we say that, it might mean that it becomes the work of somebody else. Whereas I think, as a profession, we are brilliant at adapting environments. If somebody can't stand up in the shower, we will stick a stool in there and we'll put some grab rails on the wall, and we will adapt that physical environment really quickly. But what we've heard today is people talking about it can take months or years from somebody to get accommodation that doesn't make things worse for them. People are going into bariatric services and people are only looking at the calories they put in their mouth and not thinking about the mental health implications. People are living in a society with huge inequality. And if we think that that is impacting on the functioning of the people that we work with, then we need to change that environment. We need to adapt that environment so that it is promoting people getting the lives that have what they want and need in there. This is our profession, to adapt environments to help people function. And we need to get out there and start doing that. Whether that is writing our letters to the newspaper, whether that is getting vocal on Twitter or social media, whether that is in putting ourselves in positions where we can influence what goes on in society a bit more. This is our job, to adapt environments to improve functioning. And we need to get out there and start doing that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Can I speak next?
Yeah, do.
Yeah, I agree with Keir a lot. I think we can be doing things immediately within our teams. So one thing that is on my priority list, the team have been asking me about trans issues and whether I could do some training. So, we could be those sorts of things. We could be talking about equity within our teams at ground level. And then there's other things you can do, like I'm part of the LGBTQ plus trust staff network, as well as a couple of others, but mainly that one. And I think that's something we can do. So like I've been reviewing the trans policy, and there's been a few other policies that you just get to have your say on. So that's making it more equal for staff and patients and carers. And I agree that we should also, so, you quite often see in the news, the medical opinion is always of a doctor, but I think it could be us. I think we are often in a space where we can give our opinions, and I think they should be just as valid as doctors. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. No, thank you so much for that, Hannah. Yeah, that's I think a real challenge. Let's how many times can we kind of be? I say we, you, an occupational therapist, on the platform in the media. Let's see what we can do over the next 12 months. Okay, I think we got Rachel. I think Rachel wanted to speak again.
Yep. Hello. Sorry, I can't remember who it was that was talking about the hashtag my hello, my name is campaign.
That was Amanda.
That was it. Thank you. And I was going to apologise for kind of my thoughts being all over the place, but I'm not going to, because this is what long COVID has done to me. I've got all these thoughts and ideas, and sometimes getting them out is difficult. But absolutely, we do need to think about campaigns, and that's a fantastic campaign. But in my 13 months in hospital, I didn't see it being used. I think services start off brilliantly and then it sort of fades out. I think one of the things that I really struggled with was the time. No clock on any ward was correct. It was either the wrong year or the wrong time or the wrong month, and it drove me insane. There's loads of campaigns that we could do out there, and I'm going to shut up now because I'm waffling.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. And Laura.
Good afternoon. This is exciting, joining a Twitter talk, real life talk. I'm really excited and really quite hopeful for the profession in terms of being more political and change agents for the systems and structures. It can be quite daunting, though, as an occupational therapist. Often we're, the minority in MDTs or within services. And I do feel kind of, if the Royal College of OT could, support us and have our backs in terms of giving us permission to be more active, and maybe a how-to guide in terms of, who do you lobby, who do you reach out to, because navigating the systems is quite daunting. But I'm really positive for the future of the profession.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic idea, real kind of practical resources that we could provide. Yeah, no, thanks for that, Laura. And then Kellyanne?
I think she's just coming online. There we are. Kellyanne should be with us any second. There. Hi, Kelly. Oh, you just take yourself off mute, Kelly, please.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Kelly. You're on.
Thank you for letting me speak. I am not an OT yet. I'm a future OT. I started as an OTA, and I'm very passionate about what we can do and how we can do it. And the last speaker kind of resonated with me a fair bit, that before I start on this profession, I am feeling slightly not unsupported, but where can we go to be passionate about our profession when others are not listening or not so passionate about what we do? And I think being political and is taking a stand in some places is an excellent idea for our profession to push forward.
Yeah, great. That's good. And that's your perspective as a student there. So thank you for that. I think we've got 4 people wanting to come in. So that's fantastic. I think we've got Orla next.
Again, I think it's just a little moment between people coming in and actually becoming live, as it were. So just bear with us a second. I'm sure Orla. There we go. Orla, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, go for it, Orla, if your microphone is on. Maybe we can bring in other people at the same time so that we're kind of ready to go. Are you there, Orla? Or anybody else who wants to speak? I think, Jim, you wanted to say something else. Do you want to go for it, Jim?
Yeah, if that's okay. So there were several things. Obviously, the "Hello, my name" is still part of my tagline on Twitter, and it's still part of my daily practice, and it's something I sort of, to every student I educate or work with, or every new colleague. And we do need something like that. We do need a banner for us to gather behind. And we were told to be, was it disruptive enablers by the former chair at the last OT show, something along that, going out there and changing the dynamic out there, changing the narrative, and innovate and just change everything. But we need to target that. And for us in physical health, the biggest target has got to be this DTA model that we've been fostered on by government, that has a right to reside document that has one element out of 9 that refers around therapy, and it's a medical decision. Well, that's only one aspect of a person's care in physical health, and we need to be more enabled and empowered to champion that when someone's function is not ready for society to support or is not safe to leave a ward, that we should actually be empowered to make that decision and have a standing that is equal to our medical colleagues. And it's something I'd really like the ARCOT to look at, from my point of view.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. Jim, so who else have we got? Is Orla able to speak now?
I don't think so, Steve, but we've got Ruth and Nikki have asked to speak again.
Okay, so let's go for you first, Ruth, and Nikki.
Hello. So I guess part of my thoughts are around the "Hello, my name is," that actually it was an amazing campaign, but it stemmed from someone articulating really well what they had experienced as the problem. And I think that's where all good campaigns and all innovations start from, able to see a need. Even when you see things on like The Apprentice, sorry for my junk telly, all the best creations come from people having seen a need. And I almost think that it's not always just about something that's centralized and targeted, but if we each individually do that, that collectively we make ripples right across the whole of the profession. And it's almost easier to see, well, what can I individually do and what could my contribution be, rather than feeling overwhelmed. So I guess my thought was around actually the needs that we individually see and the things we see through our occupational lens in our field of practice. Let's just start doing something about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Just making it cool. No, I like that. I like that. Makes sense. Yeah, Nikki.
Oh, hello. Yes, hi. Sorry, me again. Yeah, no, this is great listening to this conversation. I mean, a couple of speakers alluded to needing to feel that Royal College of OTs had our back, and I think, you know, that's certainly been true throughout my career, feeling that wasn't that confident in where we were as a profession. So it's been great having this campaign running and having your support, Steve, and all the other RCOT members of staff. But I wonder, in terms of building bigger alliances, you know, with other allied health professions, you know, in the same way that we need to ally ourselves with patient groups who are not well served, you know, perhaps there's a case to be made for building our own alliances, you know, politically amongst other allied health professions. But also, you know, there is a movement, you know, however derisory one might feel about it, but there was a presentation at the fringe event at the Tory Party conference. Michael Gove was there, and there was a paper presented by We Are New Local, which our political RCOT team, they were aware of that, and we've communicated about that, you know, that should we be building alliances kind of on the national level and in a bigger way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do try to do that, but yeah, there's always more, and I guess there are new opportunities now with this particular focus. I think, you know, a challenge about when we think it's a really important distinctive OT voice that we want to get across, and when actually the message is more powerful with others. But that's stuff we can work through. I think it looks like I think we should probably start. Coming to an end really. There's no one else waiting to speak, but thanks everyone for joining. I think it's been a fantastic conversation, and you know, it'd be great to get feedback, but this platform seems to be something I think is really effective and engaging. And you know, what I'm really kind of determined to do is just find ways of kind of building the strength of this kind of community really. And I think this is clearly a tool that has got potential in all of that. I mean, I do hope, and it's been great to hear people kind of reflecting that this feels new. It feels that RCOT is stepping into space that it perhaps hasn't been stepping into before. But I think, you know, it isn't just this week, is it? It's the conference. It's all the conversations I've had with so many of you since I joined. People wanting RCOT to be making more noise, to be more outspoken, to be supporting its members to be more active in this space. So this is definitely something we want to do more of moving forward. And I think, as I've just said, that power of community, I think, comes over really strongly this week, and gives us a platform to build on. It's great, isn't it, that we have an OT week where we can make this kind of particular concerted effort to get our message across. But, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean we sort of scurry back into our burrows for the next 51 weeks and do it all again next year? Or can we use this week as a, you know, we can continue to push, persuade, campaign for more occupational therapy throughout the year? Of course, we'll have particular bursts and particular emphasis, but, you know, how can we make sure that collectively we can just step up our voice all year long? So yeah, I mean, let's bring today to an end. Let's keep the conversation going. Lots of opportunities to add ideas and suggestions onto the ideas board on our website. Please do share stuff. And of course, we've got the Elizabeth Casson lecture next Wednesday, haven't we? And you know, I know that Anita Atwell will be challenging us even more, I think, to go further in this space. So let's keep that conversation going. So thanks everybody. Thank you to the panel members who kicked off the conversation at the beginning. That was really helpful. Thank you for our digital gurus who, told that the Twitter Spaces even existed, which I guess a lot of us didn't beforehand. So it's been a good week. Well done everybody for what you've achieved this week. I think it has been really powerful. And for those of you who've got weekends, have a relaxing weekend. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.